As you all know, the eyes of the world are on Vilnius, Lithuania. A number of extremely important things are occurring. Securing more Western support for Ukraine, improving NATO's own military capabilities, strengthening collective resolve against China and Russia, as well as terrorists, and of course welcoming Sweden into NATO. Our job is to pass the NDAA. Majority leaders indicated we'll go to that next week, and hopefully we'll pass it before the August recess.
The jobs report that was released here just recently had the smallest increase since the end of 2020. And when it gets adjusted, and every jobs report this year has been adjusted downward to the tune of about 200,000 jobs, I expect that it'll be even smaller. Notwithstanding that, the president is out touting Bidenomics in action. And I think he's turning a blind eye and a deaf ear to what the American people are experiencing out there, because to them, Bidenomics in action means the fact that they've had 16.2% inflation since this president took office, and that it costs $10,000 more per year for the same goods and services that they purchase on an annual basis because of this inflation. And add to that the fact that there have been 26 months in a row now where the rate of inflation has exceeded wage growth. So in other words, the American people are experiencing essentially a pay cut because any increase they're getting in wages isn't keeping up with the rate of inflation. That's been true now for the past 26 months. So the American people's experience of Bidenomics is really higher gas prices, higher food prices, lower savings rate, and higher interest rates. I mean, that's basically what the American people are seeing out of Bidenomics in action. So I would think that the president might, as he gets out across the country and starts to tout this economic record, find that the American people are having a very different experience and are quite unhappy with his so-called Bidenomics in action.
All right, folks, we had a good recess. I was able to get my number of counties visited up to 75 out of the 99 counties we have in Iowa. But so far, the top issues that I keep hearing from my constituents are that costs are so much higher. Because of the gas prices, the grocery prices, energy prices continue to be high. They are very, very concerned about that, and it is impacting the way they make economic decisions in their households. But meanwhile, we have President Biden and Vice President Harris that are out and about on this tour telling the American people that their economic policies are working. But folks, I don't want you to believe your lying eyes and your shrinking wallets, okay? So the reality of Bidenomics, and hopefully I have it the right way up, households are paying nearly $10,000 more every year compared to the same goods and services they had the year previously. As my colleague, Senator John Thune, also just said, rising inflation outpaced wage growth for 26 consecutive months. And then Americans are currently carrying a record amount on their credit cards. Okay, Bidenomics is not working, period. Okay. Iowans aren't buying this. The American people shouldn't be buying this. And they know that this crippling economy was caused by the Biden administration and their reckless spending. And Iowans, bottom line, folks, they are ready for a change in leadership.
thank you all for being here. I think it's important, the Bidenomics definition. I think definitionally, it reminds me a little bit of the late 1970s, early 1980s with the misery index. By the time you put all of these figures together that John and Joni have talked about, your misery index going up, and you feel that emotionally from people that you're talking to, the kind of faith they have in the future, where they think we're headed, and who can lead us to better solutions. So I am, and we are, very concerned about that. We're talking more about that on the floor tomorrow. I did want to talk about a bit of good news that the administration brought forward, and that is the deployment of the broadband dollars that were in the infrastructure package. For my state, it's a massive infusion because we're one of the states that's still left very underserved and unserved. And it really got people excited about that last house, that last business, that last location that's going to be able to say, we have service that you can do your homework, you can remote work, you can do your telehealth, you can go to your remote cabin in West Virginia and still be able to tune in as you're enjoying a vacation, which I would highly recommend. So I think we see that there are issues with this. Anytime you put a big infusion of a lot of money, the accountability issue is something that we need to pay close attention to. So oversight of these dollars is going to be very critical. We don't want to overbuild. We want to make sure that we're not getting gouged by either internet service providers or others who are going to be the beneficiaries to deploy this service. So that is extremely important. The other issue is the same issue that we talk about repeatedly. That's permitting. In order to have broadband deployment, in many cases, you have to go through the NEPA permitting process. It's still broken. Even the bite of the apple that we took 2 months ago may have some improvements to it, but it's still a broken system that takes too long, is too cumbersome, is too expensive, and it makes people give up in a lot of cases. So we're going to have the Assistant Secretary of Commerce into West Virginia on Friday to talk about the good news of over 275,000 West Virginians, because of this, are going to have connectivity that they haven't to this point experienced. Thanks.
We've seen over the course of the first half of the year that a circus clown is better at handling balloons than the Biden administration. As if a Chinese spy balloon flying over Montana, over our nuclear missiles, and over the entire country wasn't enough, we've now learned it was using U.S. technology to spy on the United States. In the most brazen act of espionage, the Chinese Communist Party literally used our own equipment against us. Now, China claimed it was a weather balloon that went off course. Just go back and track the course of that spy balloon, and it just happened to drift off course right over the most powerful weapons known to mankind, and that is our intercontinental ballistic missiles, which a third are in Montana. Montanans knew that wasn't true. Meanwhile, we watched this administration stand back and watch this balloon fly across the entire United States as if it was part of some kind of Taylor Swift state-to-state concert tour. The Biden administration has yet to answer any of the questions that I've asked to my satisfaction, and these Senate hearings hosted by Senate Democrats have produced nothing. It was the Wall Street Journal that broke the story about the fact they were using U.S. technology to spy against us. The Biden administration has embarrassed us on the world stage. We must repair the United States image around the world. And this starts with projecting strength, not weakness. This means action, not lack of action, from this administration, which sadly makes America look weak. I'm calling on the Department of Defense, Treasury, and Commerce to investigate how China was able to acquire U.S. technology for military end use, and demanding they update Congress. It's time the Biden administration starts taking ownership for their failures. I know they want that issue to go away, We're not going to let them because of the nature of what that balloon was looking at, which we're very proud of, the 341st Missile Wing out of Great Falls, Montana, Malmstrom Air Force Base. We can never, ever let that happen again.
Leader McConnell, do you have any concerns that you have a member of your conference, Senator Tuberville, who seems to have a hard time denouncing white nationalism, especially as it pertains to white nationalism in the military?
Yeah, white supremacy is simply unacceptable in the military and in our whole country.
What is your position on the passenger rail bill from Senators Vance and Brown? Do you support that?
I haven't made a decision personally, but I'm not sure the majority leaders decided to call it up yet. We'll see. I think the most important thing, at the risk of repeating myself, is we need to get NDAA done. It needs to be open for amendments, and we need to do it before the August recess. So I think majority leaders doing the right thing on that, and whatever the rest of his agenda is, I'm uncertain.
Leader McConnell, would you be open to supporting a resolution by Lindsey Graham to urge that NATO accept Ukraine as a member? What do you think about Ukraine joining NATO?
Yeah, I think the way to look at Ukraine's aspiration to be part of NATO is that's a later thing to consider. Right now, we need to focus on helping them win the war. After the war is over, then I think a useful discussion would be whether or not it's appropriate to add them to NATO.
Leader McConnell.
Senator Deb Fisher made a point at the rapid conference. The NDAA is falling short in funding some critical weapon systems in our allies, like harpoons and Patriots. Are we doing enough?
He's saying that Deb Fisher made a point that we're falling short in funding our critical missile systems. Falling short in funding critical missile systems.
Yeah, well,
Weapons.
the overall numbers not good enough. What the debt ceiling deal produced is inadequate for the Defense Department. How to get additional assistance is a challenge. We will have NDAA, which is not a spending bill. Then we'll have, at some point, Ukraine supplemental. In the meantime, there's an effort going on in the Appropriations Committee to try to increase defense spending. I'm hoping that's successful.